I'm gonna pull the whole thing down. I'm gonna bring the whole fucking diseased, corrupt temple down on your head. It's gonna be biblical.
Good morning, everyone. Good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you are. Welcome to Patriots Across the Pond and Friends, episode 37 with Razor Rick. I'm Elisa V, and I'm here with my partner, Stu. And we're welcoming Razor Rick today. How are you, Razor?
Blessed and highly favored.
Good to see you. I haven't seen you since you were on the forecast together. A few months
I
back.
was gonna come over to your studio, but I got tired, swam halfway across and turned around and swam back.
Yeah. Well, you should have come all the way then if you swam back as well.
Well, no, I would have flown back. I mean, I'm nuts, but I'm not crazy. Right?
Yeah, exactly. So, yeah, what's the title today, Lisa?
Our title today is Cognitive Dissonance of Organized Religion, Breaking Out of the Church Matrix and Be One with Yahuah. Now, I want to warn everyone and anyone who knows Razor and has followed him, we can go anywhere, okay? Because we just follow where God leads us in the conversation and what comes up. But let me just tell everybody a little bit about you, just a little bit of your background. So Razor Rick is a retired electrician, Sigma male, which we're going to talk about, but more importantly, an Ezekiel watchman on the wall. Yahuah leading him spiritually to the truth of his plan for us, and how organized religion and continued translations of scripture have led us astray. At his command, this is his journey. Yahuah-centered spirituality without the control narratives of the many organized religions, identity markers, and skewed translations designed to keep us from ascension or at least slow it down. Rick is transcending as a follower of the way. And Rick also has a podcast called Razor Rick on Rumble, which I highly suggest you check out and subscribe to. So where do we start? I think we started talking off camera about this idea of a Sigma male. And can you tell us about that?
Well, first I want to add that intro. This is how spontaneous things. I wrote that this morning.
Yes.
It's like, okay, what am I going to say? Because this isn't about me, far too many people out there, it's about them or whatever what spotlight they can put on them. And how that lends into the Sigma male part as compared to the alpha male. They're right there. In certain instances, the Sigma male could be at times in the alpha male's mind his arch nemesis. Sigma male operates the lone wolf kind of attitude. He can take charge of a situation if need be, but it's for the team. It's not for the pat on the backs or the accolades that come with getting the job done. It's just getting the job done and riding off into the sunset. That's what a Sigma does. He's very stoic. I've listened to a whole bunch of things like Jordan Peterson, Andrew Tate, people like that are stoic. Now, and some of the examples they give when you're looking at some of this stuff, if you've watched Peaky Blinders, Thomas Shelby is considered, I guess, a Sigma, and a couple other people in movies, their lead character presents a Sigma type mentality because, they're just there for the moment and they can get stuff done, and all of a sudden people look around and say, where'd he go?
Yeah.
Because we're not there for the fanfare, the parade. In fact, in a lot of instances, it would really make me uncomfortable. Humility is at the utmost with a Sigma. And I've recently found out there's another subset of that called the Zeta, which I know very little about at this point, but except maybe stepping it up a notch. But be that as it may, that's how I've tried to figure out to explain things. And then it added to I've already been calm for decades and everything else, ever since I can remember, high school and everything else. I've always been the calm one, very logical, rational. I'm not easily fired up or triggered, but I steal a quote from the show. You don't want to see me when I'm angry. Because and little quotes like, I refuse to engage in a battle of wits with an unarmed person, and there's a lot of people out there running around that, armed with a little bit of knowledge, they are dangerous.
Yeah.
And I've said before, how they say those little commercials, it's like, are you a doctor? They present an operating room scene and then it's, are you a doctor? It says, no, but I stayed at a Holiday Inn Express last night. And with all this stuff going on in society, I put a picture up of Holiday Inn Express. I said, with all the people that know everything, this place must be overbooked, But hey, if you're like that, I'm not trying to disparage you. Bless you for being involved and pursuing, but keep this in mind. The smartest person I've ever known knew he didn't know everything.
Yeah.
So don't stop. Keep growing. Keep thinking outside the box. Push the envelope. When something's said, go, And if you can't prove something with definitive evidence, then present it as speculation. You'll find a lot of times when I'm talking about things, I'm not going to draw on it. My opinion is my opinion, but if I'm putting it out there, I'll start the sentence with, it's been said. This is what's being said. Because I might make a definitive statement, and the next day or next hour or whatever, something comes out that deflects it a little bit or totally destroys it. So I just present evidence as it is, and I revert back to Bruce Lee saying, absorb what is useful, discard what is not, and make what is yours, yours. That's the empty your cup philosophy. Don't ever think that you know so much that you can't fill your cup up with more knowledge. Those are operating principles everybody should have. And I guess they probably fall under the title of common sense. And common sense is not a flower that grows in everybody's garden, unfortunately.
Amen to that.
But we're working on it.
Yeah. So I got a vision when you were saying about explaining. Oh, no.
What's that?
No, I said, sorry, I was muted. I was talking there. I said, there's always room for more knowledge. You've seen that, a professor with a jar fills it up with golf balls, right? There's loads of room in there.
Oh, yeah, I've seen that.
Then you fill it up with gravel. Then you put some sand in it. Then you can put some water in it. There's always room in there for a little bit more.
Yeah, while he's asking the students, is this jar full?
Yeah.
And they go, yeah. Then he pours something else. That's a great example of visual, because sometimes a lot of people can't deal with the words so much. The visual is what ultimately should grab them. See that? I almost slipped. Should grab them. And hopefully more often than not it would. But, you can only say so much to people. Even scripture says there will come a time when they will not endure sound doctrine. Okay,
Yeah.
so, and at such time, dust off your feet and go to the next town. That's not those are two separate pieces of scripture. And then never underestimate the power of planting a mustard seed. When you tell somebody about something spiritually, I hate to use the word religiously, but you're just supposed to tell them. As a watchman on the wall, I'm supposed to show them information. They can take it or leave it.
Yeah.
I did my job. I gave you the information, warning or otherwise, and you have free will. Now, and God will water the information. They may come back to me later on and say, hey, that thing you said, I know I didn't take to it at first and everything, but since then, this, that, or the other thing happened. Somebody else mentioned something. Because a lot of times people won't take it just hearing it from one person. It's when they start hearing it more and more. And that's part of the journey right now is we're breaking out of the matrix of various subjects, political, history of the world, past civilizations, what happened to them, withheld knowledge, withheld videos. I watched a crazy one the other day that somebody got a video out of I don't remember who, but of a film that was in the Vatican archives, and it showed a lot of the Tartaria architecture. So that gave you a time period thing, and some things were happening. It's a little tough to understand fully, but the big thing in the film, spacecraft all over the place, like it was some sort of attack or whatever was going on. But they've destroyed different civilizations or evidence thereof, mud floods, stuff like that. And the problem with the cognitive dissonance of organized religion is they've done a fantastical job of propaganda, so to speak, to keep people in that matrix and not. You can probably easier to talk them into that aliens exist and other stuff like that, but they won't let go of that matrix right there because it's their life ring in the middle of an ocean of information, and it's tough. They won't. A lot of them won't believe for a second that because of the statement that's been said over and over again, and I'm not doubting it. God's word is true. But what you have to consider in these modern translations is how much of that word were we given, because they've already withheld books. What I'm seeing right now is it seems like the Gnostics had things more in tune and in line on what was God's plan, and Jesus was talking. God is a title. Christ is a title. Let's get that straight. There was no J and E in those biblical times. But out of the Ethiopian scriptures, the name is Yahuah for God, Yahusha for Jesus. Okay. I slip up because it's just in there all these years. I refer to him as Jesus. I refer to him as God. So in my own process, I'm trying to break out and use the proper words. It doesn't mean everything's going to fall apart because you're not using the right names or pronunciations or anything. I've had one buddy that's like, he's like, my whole belief system. I mean, he's listening. I said, don't panic. Let's steal the line from Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. Don't panic. and always have your towel. So, but this is what happens. It's going to be a tough hill to climb. I call that cognitive dissonance organized religion the Mount Everest of all subjects, that people will finally break through. And the journey's not for everyone. You can still, if you're comfortable staying where you're at, okay, but don't try to debate me on it. I'm on a different journey. I'm further down the rabbit hole than some, not as much as most. So I look for people that I can learn from and absorb more knowledge, empty my cup, even if it sounds totally ludicrous when I hear it. I let it sit for a while. I didn't know what to make of this whole Nisara Jisara thing when I heard about it back in December of 2019, and I was paying attention to the stolen election and what was going to happen come inauguration day and stuff like that. Then January 2020, I started hearing about this Nisara Jisara thing more, and then like I chimed in once with Melissa Redpill. She made a lot of sense, showing how the stars aligned and everything, and the definitions of apocalypse and revelation and all that. There's 4 words, and it's like, yeah, that put a light on it. It's like we've been led to believe end times in a certain fashion, and that's been done through a little bit through scripture, but mostly through movies, scripts, and everything else, visual representations of end times. Fear porn, somebody's going to push the button. That's it. All the movies. That's what we've been in. Boom, 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 boom. And that's why we think the way we have been thinking, that this is going to happen. Famines, pestilence, and tribulation is tied in with the various biblical stories of the locusts and the frogs. So anytime something similar happens, we've jumped right on it. Like, oh, this is a sign. This is it. But not necessarily will those signs of tribulation that we've been leading up to them. In some instances, even the Melissa says that we're probably already through the tribulation. We just didn't recognize it because it didn't show up the way we've been told in scripture and movies. Because they'll take something from scripture and make a movie out of it. And then it gets ingrained that that's what we're looking for. So then it's no surprise we get hit with something else from left field, and we don't recognize it for part of the tribulation.
Yeah. Exactly. Well, I certainly believe when people find out about organised religion, that is definitely one part of this. The truth will put 99% of people in hospital in the queue drops. So, I mean, and there might be a lot more to that. But do you want to tell us how you got into this all, Razor, and tell us your awakening journey and your story?
My awakening, that was part of it when I've always been following conspiracy stuff for 40 years or so, something like that. Time escapes you when you're in that, Kennedy assassination, the typicals. When I see the 9/11 thing go down that morning, I said, that don't look right.
Mm-hmm.
Then I started looking into that. The Zeitgeist movies.
Yeah.
At one point, I got hooked up with a guy that he had a website and everything called The Matrix Ends Here. And he was mass producing all these conspiracy DVDs. He must have had a way to make multiple copies and everything, and he was selling them. And so I started buying some, and it's like, and he had these bulk packages where, well, that summer I spent about $800 just buying bulk packages. Like I could get 25, I could get 5 of these, 5 of that one, and everything else. This covered the Oklahoma City bombing. I seen that one right away. That was kind of a jump off point as I seen it, that everything was pretty quiet. And people check this, because back then nobody was really bothering us. We were nice and calm and quiet. There weren't no major news things about threats from other nations, so to speak. And I say this, I said, you could almost hear the layoff slips coming to the security apparatus in the United States. And then Oklahoma City. Okay. I still got this set of DVDs. They're up in my storage in Colorado. The news article that day started out as a car bomb, local news. Then it grew. By the time it hit national, it was a truck bomb. The bomb squad was cruising the streets earlier that morning. Then there was this, I think he was a brigadier general or something, whose main forte was bomb forensics. And he walked through that whole scene and said, there's no way a truckload of fertilizer did that damage, let alone that radius and everything else. There was a lady on the video that worked in that building for 11 years, and she knew everybody. She was one of them Gladys Kravitz type busybodies, you know the type. And she said she started seeing a lot more GSA employees, government services, show up around the building that she didn't recognize. And one morning she pulls into the parking garage and sees what she could only describe of as gray like brick substances and phone wire. The local news article on the news that morning stated that they were technical bombs, and one or two were found that didn't go off. But by the time it hit national, none of that was being mentioned. And then the Timothy McVeigh pictures of him standing with a Arab-looking gentleman. Nobody made anything out about that. No, he was supposedly lone guy, except for his other partner. And then I've never seen anybody get arrested, interrogated, and executed in 30 days. Really? Because usually somebody like that's a mastermind, as they were presenting, you keep them around. You keep them locked up like Hannibal Lecter. They go to him later and say, we got this other problem. Can you help us profile? Stuff like that. They want to keep him around to pick his brain and stuff, but they didn't keep him around. Now, that ties in with we can even go back to the Robert Kennedy assassination and the girl in the polka dot dress. You ever heard about her?
I'm not sure I've heard about her, actually.
Sirhan, that's MK Ultra.
Mm-hmm.
The last thing he remembers as he's sitting at the deli counter at the Ambassador Hotel was a girl come up in a polka dot dress. The next thing he knows, he's got a gun in his hand. He's being taken down. And Robert Kennedy Jr., Robert Kennedy wasn't shot from the front. And then there's more bullets flying around in that kitchen than that gun could carry, stuff like that. But that's the last thing he remembers, is some woman in a polka dot dress, and whatever she said to him was the trigger for the MK Ultra thing.
Yeah.
Then in the video, the Men Who Killed Kennedy series, 7-part series, I bought a copy of that set way back. So I don't know if you bought one today, if it would be any different, but I made sure I got one hot off the press before they could mess with it, right? So they interviewed this lady who was a waitress or something, worked at the Ambassador Hotel, and they're out back. It's a big 2-story building. At the end, there's this one of them long metal staircases of the day, And she said, I was standing out here smoking a cigarette. And all of a sudden that door burst open. She turned, and it was two people. And as soon as they came out that door, the first thing they said is, "We killed him." And who do you think it was? A man and a girl in a polka dot dress.
Yes.
And then we can go back to JFK. A latent pinky print found in the 6th floor book depository with 39 points a match on cardboard. And the guy this is in the 7-part series, The Men Who Killed Kennedy. He says fingerprints don't last long on cardboard, obvious, because it's oily and it soaks into the cardboard. And hang on.
Someone's having a drum.
A video of my granddaughter, probably.
Aw.
She's probably she's having some issues today. But the fingerprint went right to Malcolm Max Wallace, direct connections for decades with LBJ, and a person of interest on 7 murders that LBJ was a person of interest also, one of which his sister and stuff like that.
LBJ sister?
Huh?
LBJ sister?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Didn't know that.
She had an attitude and had a propensity for drinking, loose lips, sink ships kind of thing. And I heard that she married a black man, and LBJ was about the racist piece of garbage ever to set feet on this earth. The night before the assassination, he told his mistress, "These effing Kennedys won't disrespect me after tomorrow." All were in attendance. All them people in the JFK Oliver Stone movie, Ferry and the governor and all, they were all
Right.
there. And Oswald told his mistress that the original plan was to go after Castro, inject him with some cancer. Then they shifted gears, and he didn't like that they were going after the president. So he told his lady that he was just staying in to see if he could stop it. Okay. We see how that ended up.
Right.
But the 39 points of match, you only need 9 to convict. So in the video, the guy went around asking district attorneys, if you had a murder, didn't tell them what it was about. If you had a murder with a fingerprint at the scene with 39 points of match, oh, slam dunk. The card was in the possession of the FBI for like 18 months, and it disappeared. All sorts of things, you know.
Yeah.
And now we got the Charlie Kirk thing, which I think is going to eclipse all the that story is, there's more to it every day. But the only thing I see missing right now is a grassy knoll gunman in that story, you know. But I guess that campus didn't have a grassy knoll. Maybe it did. I don't know. But watch that story unfold, because, watch TPUSA is going to go down. We got to get rid of the Zionists and the Jesuits, any of these evil mofos. And that's part of the organized religion thing, you know? Yeah.
Now, I want to know, by the way, when you were describing the Sigma male, I started to say this before, I got a vision, as a film major, of Shane. That's how I see you. You're like Shane. He comes in, he does what he has to do, and he sails off into the sunset. So I love the way you describe
the movie.
The movie, Shane, come back.
Come back, Shane. Yeah, well, yeah, that's.
Yeah, it's like how the American cowboy, how they.
High Plains Drifter, Yeah. Man on a pale horse,
Exactly.
Nothing like a good piece of hickory,
So you have a really interesting, that's like you've always been, and many of us always have been, what they used to call conspiracy theorists, tinfoil hat wearing, crazies, right? So we all come from that background, let's say.
No tinfoil hat.
No tinfoil hat? Why is that?
What's a tinfoil made out of?
Aluminium.
Yeah, aluminum.
And anybody that's deep into this stuff, and this for the folks that maybe don't think about it, no really educated conspiracy researcher would put aluminum that close to his brain.
Well, that's why we're crazy.
Yes, it shields, but it was just to make fun of us, just like
yeah, that's what I mean. It was a derogatory. So, but your life is so interesting. You know, you've lived all over. You originally East Coast, New York, and you've been all over the country. But do you want to tell everyone about your very interesting, like what led you up to where you are now?
I mean, as far as locations?
No, I mean like in terms of what you did, your livelihood.
Oh, well, you know, after I got out of the Navy, I took a job as just an electrician's helper in '79. And then to try to utilize some of my electronics experience, my father was the engineer at a hearing aid manufacturer in Orlando, Florida. And so I got a job there as one of the line techs on hearing aids, the first company to come out with rechargeable hearing aids where you drop them in an induction cup. You didn't have to plug them in or change batteries. And that was pretty interesting. You know, I'm working an assembly line, so to speak, and 26 women on my line. And yeah, that can get crazy. Y'all women are crazy. They
Really?
they didn't bother me, you know, because I'm just who I am and that's it. But and we joke around, you know. Back then I had one of them Steve Martin arrow through the heads, you know. I had that hanging at my desk, and they'd be over there frustrated with it because you're trying to put it together and it's feeding back and everything, and all you hear all day is 5, 5, 5, because it covers a lot of frequencies when you're saying that word. And they'd be frustrated. So I'd put it on and I'd lean over and I'd just say, "Are you okay?" And they'd look, and then the comic relief would just calm them down. But there was this one new tech that came on, and you know, polyester pants and everything, thought he was cock of the walk and everything, and strutting and everything. Oh, you got us. That was in a sense brutal, because they started teasing him and everything else, and you know, cat calling him and everything else, you know, and he just did not know how to handle it. They tried it with me, and it was like, you know, they say something about my ass, and I just pointed at them, say, you know, because as soon as you show them and it's not going to bother you, they don't know what to do after that, you know. Just have fun with it and everything. But and then after I did that, I got into cable TV in Orlando, Florida, Cablevision of Central Florida, the company that Time Warner, they came out with an MTV. I remember that day, the launch and everything. I became a service tech, 3.5 years of the lightning capital of the world, Orlando, Florida. If I put 12 hours on a Christmas day once, just to keep people's cable on and stuff like that. And that was quite a journey. And then after that, I left that, and my brother-in-law called me up, rest his soul. He was out of the Orlando local 606, and he says, "What are you doing?" I said, "I'm just regrouping. I'm going to see what I'm going to do next." He says, "Come on out to this job. They're putting out white paper, which means you don't have to be a member, but they needed extra work." And I said, "Well, I've never done that." He says, "Don't worry. What if you don't know? Just act like you know, and then come ask me." And so I hit the ground running. We did this hotel that's down there in around Kissimmee, Florida, and I hooked up there was 16 runs from Florida Power into the building, 16 pipes with, you don't understand these terms, but 750 cable, 3 hots and a ground. And that 750, that's a 3/4 inch round piece of cable, right? He had a journeyman who's already knows what he's doing and a helper down at the other half. I'm down here on the other half, and all the journeyman asked me if I was okay, and I was fine. Everything I did there, I just took to it like water. I ran this big pipe run up over the head down to a panel that didn't even have a wall yet and stuff like that. And the GF and my brother-in-law was my foreman, and they looked up at it, and my brother-in-law goes, "You never run pipe before?" I said, "Nope, that's my first pipe run." He says, "You'd never know it." And I said, "Well, wasn't that the idea?" So I'm all self-taught as far as the electrical trade, and then I got in eventually 10 years later, and then I hit the road up and down the Midwest, cutting and threading with some of the best craftsmen in the trade. Then out to Vegas in 95, Labor Day weekend 95, and that's what got me out here. And originally, a buddy of mine, we were only going to spend 3 to 5 years because we can go on the road and tramp around, as we call it. And 20 all these years later, we're still here. We're both retired. We never left. You know, money's good, stuff like that. So pensions and all that good stuff. So that's my journey, job wise. Other journeys, 2005. I was caregiving for a ex-girlfriend of mine who came down with diagnosed with brain cancer. And so I caregived for her for a number of years. And when she went in for the surgery on this, it wasn't a formed tumor, it was more liquid, I guess, from what they told me. October 2nd, 2005. Okay. Total disclosure, I was dealing methamphetamine in Vegas area pretty much shortly after I got into town, because I was hanging out in all the topless clubs and everything, girls like that stuff. But I quit using in March of 05. I still had methamphetamine at my disposal, in my hands, still dealing it until October. And I already knew I was eventually going to quit the whole thing altogether. But on October 2nd, we finally got her into the hospital. They were checking her out. Next thing I know, she's going to surgery. Boom, boom, boom. Had to even cut one of her rings off because the nurses were having trouble getting it off and everything. And I'm trying to fill out the sheet about any known medications and stuff for the anesthesiologist. And I had to say, well, I'm pretty sure she's got methamphetamine in her system. I'm clean at this point, but I'm still dealing. And I handed the clipboard to one of the nurses. Well, one of the nurses could tell. She put her hand on my shoulder. She could feel my energy. I handed the clipboard to someone else, grabbed the side cutters, snip, and then handed those back, and then grabbed the clipboard and kept on. And then when they took her away, it's like, they're going to kill me kind of scene. And I'm like thinking, do I, you get those thoughts. Do I throw her on my shoulder and get her the hell out of there? Or do I, because the tumor was putting pressure. So speech would go and stuff like that. And she'd be just sitting there drooling on herself and stuff like that when the pressure was on. But right after the surgery, it's like clear as a bell. But when they took her away, I walked out of that area, across the hall into surgery waiting room, and the dam burst. I'm pulling out my flip phone. I'm calling my mommy. What's going on? It's like, I'm scared. I'm getting a little, but everything fine. They gave her like 3 months or something like that. And then it started the path. A church came by to visit her. Then after she got out of the hospital, I took her to that church, basically pay respects and say thank you. And then at the journey, she got baptized and everything else. And I started my journey on that day. While she was recovering and everything, I went down to the little chapel. You know, they always got the little room, you know, and I said, you got me. Whatever you want to do with me, do it. Just take care of her. I didn't ask for anything for myself. And then it was a Sunday, my mother's birthday, all this convergence. And then they had a church service later on that day. I went down there, and that started my journey coming back, so to speak, you know, and so on and so forth. And then probably a year or so later, whatever it was, a couple of years, we started the Riding with Jesus MC. You know, I was the armor bearer, so to speak, as far as titles go. Now I'm the last founder and the president, because people wanted to walk their walk for themselves or for the notoriety, the fanfare, you know, let me have the entourage and everything else. And that just wasn't me. You know, I learned early on to be a watchman on the wall. I felt it coming. I'm like, I don't want this. Not that I wanted to just sit in the pews and relax and just follow Yahuah, but I could feel him saying, this is what you're going to do. And finally, as I just said to myself, okay, because, you know, if you can sense anything from my personality, once I decide to do something, it's full throttle. You know, I even got a patch on my jacket that says full throttle till you see God and then break. So, and that's how that goes. And I was always looking at some of these preachers and denominations and everything, and how they weren't really preaching there. And I won't stand here today and say they were preaching it wrong. They were all preaching it differently. And I'm not really on board with the control narratives. You know, I've done a podcast with Elisa on the subject of control narratives, and certain people aren't going to go to heaven because they didn't do it my way. I don't buy into that. You know, a loving God wants everybody to join him up in the ethereal ascension plane, which we refer to as heaven. And there is no, I mean, yeah, there's bad people, okay, but we haven't been told the story straight. The church got involved, the control mechanisms, Constantine, the Roman Catholics, all these, the Sanhedrin, the Pharisees and the Sadducees, they all wanted to control us, keep our frequency down, keep us within that 3 strands of our DNA, because they know once we break out of that into the other DNA structures, we're going to be able to just go.
Yeah.
Which in most cases, we've had to do that through death. Well, we're finding out that we don't necessarily, I would have to say, theorize that we don't need to wait for death in order to transcend and ascend. I've told people to replace the word rapture. I'm going to get to a tidbit on that in a second. See how this thing's rolling? Rapture with ascension. Replace evolution or evolution with transcendence, transcending. We're all going to change. We're all going to grow. We should grow. If we're not, then, you know, it's like we ran out of the gas down the track and everybody's still going by. On the rapture subject, believe the guy's name is Darby. And I believe the date was 1830. He came up with the concept of rapture and instituted it, marketed it, installed it in the scriptures. started preaching it however he did it. And ironically, in one of the translations that a bunch of people will swear by, the Schofield Bible, folks, which the Catholic Church used to use, but then all of a sudden they decided not to use it anymore. So what's that make you think? If the Catholic Church didn't want to use it anymore, that at least should make you explore why didn't the Catholic Church use it for a while and then not use it? Why did the Catholic Church reduce everything down to 66 books? Why did the Council of Nicaea tell you could only have so much information about God's word and that nothing else? And why would they tell you to do it their way? Otherwise, you're not going to make it. Pentecostals will tell people that if you don't get the gift of tongues, then you're just not there yet. You're lacking, would be the way to look at it. So I've broken out of those matrices, and some people break out of a matrix and then they just jump into another one. There's the trick. Break out of the matrix, step back, take that objectivity, higher perspective on whatever subject you're dealing with. This doesn't just have to do with religion and God and everything. It's anything political, because let's face it, left wing, right wing, same bird. And then we see some of them, they're actually left wing, but they know they're going to be able to get in the power seat by changing their label. We've seen that done, especially probably the last 20 years. It's been a real thing.
Yeah.
That, I'm not going to be able to beat that other Democrat, so I'm going to change parties. And that other party will say, hey, we won another convert, whether it's left to right or right to left. They'll greet you into their little club, and essentially you show no evidence of actually changing your mindset from left to right or right to left or whatever. Some of it becomes pretty obvious, but you got to be objective if you're going to have discernment. What I mean by that is a lot of people claim to have discernment. I've watched this for decades in street ministry. No, I got discernment. Like, do you? All they have is a perception is the basis of their discernment. And their perception was handed to them from only one thing, the church, the pulpit, wherever they got it from. They mostly just wanted to fit into their little clique. They don't want to be thought of as an outsider, which apparently I don't have a problem with. I got a meme that says I'll never be accused of a person that shut up, something to that effect. So any other questions? I mean, I'm going on and on and on here.
Well, this is great. Thanks for sharing, and thanks for such
there's more, but
such honesty. Yeah, I think like your last point, I think probably everyone in the chat, and certainly I can speak on behalf of me and Stu, I think we're of that same ilk. We don't care.
And there needs to be more of this, and when I'm saying all this stuff and I'm presenting all this information, it's not for debate. And when I stand on the stage of debating or discussing a topic, it's not so I can be right. I'll put the information out there. You can take it or leave it. In the realm of a watchman, I've done my job. Your blood will not be on my hands if you go off and walk off a cliff when I told you there's a sign right there, the cliff ahead. And you just turn to me and say, I got this. I don't want to hear it. There's even a cartoon like that, right? So I'm basically, I've done my job, and I've told you, right, wrong, or indifferent, at the very least, people should give alternate information a consideration. You can see how I choose my words. And I don't need to get emotional about it, because when you go emotional, you're not thinking straight. You're not thinking clearly. Hence, the stoic Sigma male archetype. I'm not trying to, an alpha might just press you so much because he wants that crown of being right. So I've even, here's another funny story. When I was working up in Boston area, I was hanging out at a party. And as any gathering, I used to say, how many people believe 2 planes took down 2 towers on 9/11? Okay. And there'd be a show of hands. I said, okay. I said, let's put that to the side, because there's a lot of little nuances of, did the planes actually exist? Was it wired? Was it imploded? Whatever. And BBC showing Building 7 coming down, and in the back screen live, it's still standing. Okay?
John Stanley, that was.
So, and this wasn't even stepping up onto a platform to debate the subject. It was just a curious thing to throw out there, test the waters, see who's, and what really cracked me up one time, and not that this person was trying to engage me in the discussion, but it gave me a realization that there are people out there that might, armed with a little bit of knowledge, and they just don't, they're not, like, battle of wisdom with an unarmed person is, one person says, there's a Building 7. And they were genuinely sincere that they did not know that there was a 7th building or anything about the structure of that complex. Now we get into the movies showing us stuff. You remember the second Die Hard?
Yeah.
What happened there?
That was the gold ice, wasn't it? Wasn't it the one with all the lorries going in, taking the gold out? Yep.
That's what happened that day, too. Building 7 had the New York Federal Reserve, and a bunch of gold went missing.
Yep.
A lot of that, with all the other stuff going on, a lot of people missed that little piece of information, right? I mean, you can debate till the cows come home with people about were bombs planted and everything else, and there's a whole plethora of knowledge of head of security for 2 years prior to 9/11 was Marvin Bush. That's how they get, because somebody said, how do you get into a facility like that to do all that work? Because here in Vegas, we know what's involved in rigging a building to take it down. Right. They even use that term. Silverstein even used that term. Yeah. And some people didn't realize that the whole facility was owned by the U.S. government and was under mandate by the EPA to vacate all the asbestos in it. So what you got is a toxic nightmare there, which is going to cost a lot of bucks if you've ever seen what it takes to abate asbestos from a building. It's very much of a process.
It's a big enough problem when you have a private house, and that's a small little job.
So what you got is a bunch of guys, the Bushes and all them, sitting around wanting to perform a false flag. So, we got this dinosaur in New York City that if we took it down, now you got concrete dust, asbestos. Yeah, 3,000 or so people died, but over 30 or 40,000 died in the aftermath, first responders and people on the streets, due to respiratory illnesses because they just got hit with a bunch of asbestos and concrete dust in the process. And then it's like, oops, look up William Rodriguez, Last Man Out video. He was a janitor with one of the 5.
I've seen him.
One of the 5 master keys to the whole place. They tried to get him to run for office, and he kept saying, what about the bombs? No, don't even worry about that. Don't even worry about that. And 2 weeks they were going to fund it. They were going to fund his campaign and everything. He turned it down. He refers to those 2 weeks as his Bush years. But he barely got out of there. He got down to the lobby, and all he seen was a bunch of people saying, and he ran and jumped underneath this fire engine right nearby. And he, unbeknownst to him at the moment, was the buildings were already coming down. Okay. And it took, I think he said it took him 3 days to dig him out.
Mm.
One floor, because he spent a lot of time in the stairwells cleaning up cigarettes, whatever, cigarette butts and stuff. And he heard a lot of heavy stuff moving around on the floors. This one floor that he knew for a fact was empty. So he goes and puts his key in the lock. He was getting ready to turn it, and he said the hairs on my back of my neck stood up, and I just pulled the key out and
Wow.
got the hell out of there.
Wow. I mean, we could sit here for weeks, all the anomalies, all the things. This one said that. I mean, people, we had Mark Messina on here. He's talking to his friend who said, we've been told that a plane hit into the building. You don't know that, you know what I'm saying? Like, how could you not know a plane hit? You're on the next floor. Like, there's so many things. And you're right. You dig with a very objective, open mind.
Just go, because I seen all the things. There was a little spark just before the so-called plane hit the structure.
Yeah.
And then there's the one with the module on the bottom. There was a remote control flight capabilities. But at the end of the day, you got an aluminum tube. The most solid piece of the things are the engines on the outside. That'll bring us up to the Pentagon.
Yeah.
Where were the engines? The tail was taller than the top of the building, and that ring stayed there for 20 minutes after the initial impact. What was right there at the point of impact? The accounting building that was looking for the $3 trillion that Rumsfeld said that they didn't know where it went the day before.
That's the budget analyst office, that was.
Yeah. And it's round. So you've heard the experts say, oh, well, the wings just like fell in. Like, that's
no, you're driving an aluminum tube into 3 rings of possibly the most reinforced concrete ever in the history of construction, because they didn't just put that stuff together with aluminum studs and a basic pour and all that stuff. What some of the videos showed where the hole was, on the side of the hole, you can see the office. You can see a filing cabinet with one of those old computer monitors, stack of papers. None of it's on fire.
Yeah.
None of it. It's like, yeah, come on. So, but yeah, that was an experience that people didn't even realize there was a Building 7. I thought to myself, here's not that person in particular, but here's a situation where that person might have tried to debate me on what happened and didn't even know
the facts,
the whole story.
You know, it comes back to what you said about vibration and fear, because they immediately, right? I don't know how many hours, had everybody, or those who were leadable, to focus on this big bad boogeyman, Osama bin Laden. And so now the fear, the anger, the emotion, right? Can't think straight when you're emotional. And, and then of course the mourning, right? There's a lot of mourning, right? I mean, I knew a bunch of people who died there and everything. So I say this tongue in cheek, brilliant plan, brilliant operation.
Yeah, well, that guy said the morning, didn't he? One of the very first interviews, which you can't find very easily now. It doesn't look like a plane crashed anywhere near here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Except they didn't count on people like us. And then, of course, now, right then you had the internet, right? So that was what, in my opinion, has been the prevailing aspect of truth getting out, because now the world got smaller. We're able to get opinions. People are podcasting, talking, coming together. And so that just escalated until 2017 with the Q operation, right? And here we are today. But, you know, if you think about it historically, especially can you imagine if we had the internet when Kennedy was assassinated? Totally different ballgame.
That's why we've been all over this Charlie Kirk shooting, you know, because we've got the eyes on now.
Here's the other tell. Okay, and it deals with protocol. Okay, first plane hits, from what they say, right? First plane hits. Bush Jr. is at that school getting ready to read that book to the kids. That was a well-publicized event week or two before that he was going to be there at that location. Okay. Now you got an instance where I think it might even have been a second plane hits, and now we're under attack. Guy comes up and whispers in his ear, and they played it off like he didn't want to panic the room or anything. That craziness. Well, whatever happened to Secret Service protocol? Secret Service protocol is no less different than when Reagan got shot on the street. That was they were putting him in check about something with that. But what did the Secret Service do? They smashed his head into the side of the door, trying to get him in the limo, because that's protocol. You can be, I don't care, president, vice president, whatever. When they go into action, their protocol is to get you to safety, continuity of government. So you don't got no, just leave me alone. I'm going to stay right here. No. They're supposed to jump into action. Everybody get the hell out of the way. Start getting the kids to safety, because for all they knew, but they did know,
right,
that a plane could be headed for that school to take out the president.
That's an excellent point. I've never heard anybody actually articulate it that way. You're absolutely right.
Sorry. Do you remember the 5 words that the children in that classroom were repeating at the time?
No, I don't.
I'll tell you. They were sitting there and the teacher was getting them to repeat these words. And the 5 words were kite, hit, steal, plane, must.
The kids were saying that?
Yeah. Kite, hit, steal, plane, must. There's no such thing as coincidence.
No.
I did see something. It was a Donald Duck rendering or piece of a cartoon in black and white, and there was an eye chart over off to the side, and I believe, if memory serves me, I just seen this yesterday, it's with the letters, you know, there's an S on top and it says stop the Illuminati, but it was all set up like an eye chart.
Yeah, so you wouldn't pick it up with subliminal.
Wow.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you've got your Rumble channel is called the Razor Zone, isn't it? And
I call it the Razor Zone, but it's under Razor Rick.
Under Razor Rick. Yeah, and you do regular shows, sort of like little roundups and stuff. So what's the main thing that you're looking into at the moment? I know we're looking into everything, but you know what everyone's talking about these Epstein files.
Well, like back, what is it? A few months back, Elisa said, you know, let's do an interview and stuff. And what do you want to talk about? Well, I can, as you see, I can talk about just about every subject out there. Not that I'm any expert, but there's a lot of marbles rolling around up there. And, but the main thing is that I'm more focused on is the ascension process, spiritual awakening, cognitive dissonance, organized religion, the amount of dogmas and doctrines and 34,000 translations. Why do we need so many translations? The fallacies of the King James versions, all the modern translations. I advocate for just stop reading them. Keep them in your your shelves, whatever. Get an Ethiopian and Geneva version. The Geneva version's a little easier to read. I'll mention the thing called the Way. The Ethiopians were considered followers of the Way. So isn't it kind of that Jesus said, I am the way, the truth, the light? But stop there, because this is where I feel, they threw in the control narrative. Nobody gets to the Father except through me. I don't have to worry. I did it. I checked all those boxes, right? But I'm more concerned about the other people out there that are very good people, deserve their place in heaven. They follow a creator. So what? And it's not so much a control narrative. It's more of a divisionary statement. And Satan loves dividing people. So it's the same thing like in the political realm. If we can't get together with God and us in unity to where we don't demonize this, that, or the other so-called religion, that they're just not doing it right, which who are we to say that? In a sense, that's judging right there. So that concept of there's only one way, I call into question. I'm not questioning God. God's the one that's telling me to ask this or say this, okay? And it all happened after I got in that accident 6 years ago. My train of thought, my mindset has changed. Even I'm still a watchman, but I'm going deeper than I was before with false teachers, cults, even some of these other religions I used to consider cults. I don't really necessarily speak to that or like that anymore, that they're just a cult. Well, yeah, they're doing things differently than the Catholic Church. King James already translated a book on demonology before he did the King James Version. Know that, people. Okay? He was gay. He colluded with his aunt to behead his mother so he could take the crown. He used the Geneva Bible in part for his translations and changed things. One particular scripture says God warning against evil, this, that, and the other things. And the last line in the verse was warning against evil governments. He specifically had that part of the passage taken out in his translation. And then right after he was done with his translations, isn't it funny that he outlawed the Geneva Bible in England? Because nobody questions the king. The real sad part about it is, and this floored me when I heard this little tidbit, that King James apparently was of the bloodline, the Druze, the bloodline of Mary Magdalene, which puts him in direct connection with the man himself. So he was supposed to do benevolent things due to his legacy, his bloodline, and everything else, but for some reason, whatever, he chose the dark side. But people will emphatically follow. You should only be using the King James Version. You shouldn't, and they do the same thing. You shouldn't, the NIV or this, that, or the other translations has removed verses. You'll see commentary on that. They'll show you the verse and chapter and verse where it doesn't say the same thing as the King James, and that's why I went deeper as far as I can go religiously, mind you, with the Ethiopian Geneva Bible, translated 400 or so years before the King James. So then and this is just a stop along the way, because the next part of my journey to go deeper would be the Emerald Tablets, and I've already heard some stuff on it, and the Sumerian texts, which oddly enough, you read the Sumerian text, they're not set up the same way as chapters and verses and same names, Matthew, Mark, Luke, John, stuff like that. But they are essentially saying the same thing that you can find in the Bible, roughly, except for manipulations with translations, which they try to pass away with there wasn't a word for that in their language or whatever. But Sumerian,
there's so many Bibles out there. We know they've been messed about with, bits taken out, left out. There should be more books, all these sorts of things. If anyone was just going to buy one Bible, I mean, what would you suggest to them?
Due to its easier read, it would be the Geneva, and I would have an Ethiopian right there. It's got the Apocrypha. It's got 88 books.
So Rick, the current King James Bible is 66, which is a really interesting number anyway. And then you're saying if you look at the Ethiopian or the Geneva, it brings it up to 88, both of them?
Yeah.
Okay. So which books, like, do either of those contain, let's say, the book of Enoch? I think there was even a book of Q.
The lost Gospels and all the, let's for sake of argument, the translations or whatever, the concepts, that'd be a good way to put it, the concepts of the Gnostics. The Gnostics were a group of people that just didn't see it the way the Catholic Church did. Okay. And let's face it, Christianity as a word, that was man-made. I hate to say it. And it was put together by the Roman Empire and Constantine. That's how you get this melding together of pagan practices and stuff. And that's how they put it all together, because they wanted to keep people in one group, so to speak. The Sumerian religion, 6,000 years old, as far as I've seen so far, because this is still a journey. I may find something else out later on after this. When I spoke about, I was talking with somebody about the Schofield Bible and stuff like that. 2 days later, the video showed up about the guy coming up with the rapture, and then boom, Schofield Bible. I'm like, I don't go looking for this stuff. Generally, I don't sit there and go type in a keyword and to find what I'm really wanting to say. I just sit back, I scroll, go on YouTube, and I got a book called the Nag Hammadi. It's the real teachings of Christ. I still need to crack it open, but I've watched enough videos on it. The real teachings of Christ, which seem to, now everybody knows that, where did Jesus go from about 12 years old or so, whatever it was, till he reappeared in the biblical times at 30 years old and started doing all these things, all these miracles. When you look at these miracles, they're definitely spiritually and energy based. Okay. The Chinese talk about Qigong, which is energy based, transferring energy, healing energy. And that's just what Jesus was doing.
And think about it. Like, I'm not my fiance is really into all this, so I've learned some, but there are, which I'm sure you can attest to, where the chi is actually used where there's not even a hand put on the other person, right? Where the energy from the force that they could emit, I guess, can throw someone, many, many feet. So if you look at that with closed up, you're like, wow, that's a miracle, because of the fact that you don't understand.
No, they don't look at it as a miracle. The first reaction is from the Christianity, or I'm referring to it as the Constantini family and origin, because it derived from Constantine, that's witchcraft. That's their first reaction. That's New Age. You shouldn't be doing that. And that's been part of my journey the past 6 years. Anything that the church told me not to look at, stay away from, or basically not look at ever again in my life, I've been going back and looking at it again.
Right.
Because I was almost, I was on that path. And it doesn't mean that just because you start looking at meditation, energy healing, chakras, yoga, stuff like that, doesn't mean you're an atheist. Far to the contrary, you're actually stepping down the road. You took the off ramp off the highway of organized religion, and you started looking for the next turnoff point to get more in line with Yahuah, God. Okay, but it's a brave step for some. It's a totally unheard of thing. That's New Age. Well, there's nothing new about New Age. It's older than all the other stuff that we've been told to follow.
Yeah.
So, can it be a slippery slope into some of the dark arts? Yes, I will give you that. But you can make that decision to stay on the road, not go down into the ditch.
Yeah.
So
I think what I was saying, I wasn't saying I was saying that for an average person, like especially someone who back then there wasn't a lot of information to see that kind of energy use. It could be not what they were told, but you would think, just like if you went back in time with the cell phone, right? You would be looked at as having this amazing power. So I'm saying people didn't understand energy. So the things that Jesus was doing amongst the people were probably not understood, that like you said, he was using energy and where his frequency was. And honestly, what I heard, you might know this better, I heard that Jesus was also a yogi master.
Where did he go? That comes into the where did he go? There's not a lot of records to indicate, or if there are, they're sequestered somewhere. Sure. Because he's hung out in Ethiopia. I've often wondered when I started looking at this Ethiopian Bible thing, the Ethiopian Orthodox, and it's like, how did they escape the infiltration of the organized church? Well, I've seen some pictures of the place. These monks and monasteries up on the side of the hill where you just got to go, how am I going to get up there? The terrain isn't friendly as far as that, just like the Tibetan monasteries and stuff like that. When you talk about the energy, let's go to movies. Okay. If anybody out there has seen the movie Bloodsport with Jean-Claude Van Damme, okay, the concept called dim muck, the death touch, it's called. Okay. In one scene, there's a stack of bricks, right? Just like any martial artist knows, they get ready, they're drawing their energy, you meditate, and when you explode, you're visually letting it go down your arm or wherever, or out your leg, wherever the strike point is. And he puts his hand on there, and all of a sudden the guy says the third brick. That means he's supposed to break the third brick down, no other brick. And of course, the movie, but this stuff actually happens. I lived in Orlando back when I took jiu-jitsu. Martial arts supply store in town became a good friend of mine, Bob Elder, owned the place. He studied at the Walloon Temple in Orlando, Florida. Y'all can look it up. It still exists today. And a good buddy of mine, Tommy Turcotti, who was a full-blown Sifu, energy healing, acupuncture, herbal medicine, Florida State certified. They studied under Master Chan. And and we're talking early 80s, and as far as I know, this Master Chan's still alive, and he wasn't a young man when I met him at a little celebration where they rent a auditorium and do the whole lion dance and everything else and stuff like that. But he was mentioned on a Discovery Channel thing where they studied 4 different arts. They studied, I don't know how they picked them, but one of them was Qigong. A little old lady in Venice Beach or someplace like that, training out of her garage. And he says, I want you to show me something. She says, I can't. You're not ready. You know, she could hurt him, you know, but that's in the energy transference. Master Chan's master, they said in this documentary, was the last known person to have used a death touch. I can only surmise that this is in years ago, China, whenever it was, when, like in the movies, my kung fu better than yours, and we're going to fight to possibly the death for me to prove that my kung fu is better than yours, right? So this old guy, 60, 70 years old, whatever he was, gets challenged numerous times by this 40-year-old, they said. And finally, one day, he can't get around it. He finally says, all right, we're going to do this. And they tell the story that the young guy, you know, does all them things you see a kung fu artist do before he prepares for battle. The old guy just steps 1 foot back, clears his robe, and then the young guy charges at him, and I visioned it as like a bullfighter. Ole, boom. Hits him in the right spot, and the guy died 3 days later. They upset the energy of the organ, and it stops functioning. Now, you go with Bruce Lee, 1 inch, 3 inch punch. This is real stuff. When you're standing there and you go, bam, 1 inch to 3 inches away, and there's a story in the book called Zen in the Martial Arts, where
I've read that. Okay,
you've seen the chapter where he was over at the author's house, Bruce Lee was, and this 250-pound power lifter, black belt in judo guy comes by to say hi, meets Bruce Lee, says, yeah, cool. You know, I can see how he's fast. He's 5'7", 135 pounds. Okay. But I don't think he can really develop power. And Bruce, enough to get the job done. Bruce, very humble. Okay. But the author said his buddy pressed him, you know, with respect. And Bruce says, okay, brace yourself. And the author says, my buddy just kind of half-ass braced himself. And he set him up for a 3-inch punch. Boom. Drives this guy back 6 feet into the swimming pool.
Yes.
See, she knows. She read it. They also discuss empty your cup in that book too.
Yep. That's our life, like with George.
Yeah.
Everything comes back to empty your cup
and the guy, embarrassed, crawls out of the pool, asks to use the bathroom, goes up to the house. The author comes up after a minute and finds him sitting on the bathtub inspecting his chest. And the guy says, it felt like I got hit with a sledgehammer.
Wow. Yep.
And that's all energy. So it's not unfeasible. It's very plausible that when Jesus disappeared for all these years, he spent time in Ethiopia, then maybe up there in Tibet with, who knows, Confucius, you know, comparing notes, you know, because this is what it all boils down to. Jesus wasn't about religion. It's all spiritual, but they've demonized when, you know, if I ran around Christian circles and said, you know, I'm spiritual now. I don't, you know, if I don't want to say I'm a Christian, right? Because let's face it, there's some Christians out there that gave Christians a bad name. Mm-hmm. They talk the talk, but don't walk the walk.
Yeah.
Okay. They're not living by example. The whole concept is become Christ-like, which actually puts a good connection to Christ consciousness, which is energy spiritually based. So why would you not want to, at the very least, people, consider that? Take a look at it. It doesn't mean you've abandoned the other ship at all. Add to yourself. So I just don't see at the Great White Throne Judgment that a Zen Buddhist or anybody else that has lived a pure life is going to hear, "Depart from me, I knew you not." I just don't see it. And for somebody to definitively say that that's what they will hear because they didn't do it the way they did it, I think that's facetious and arrogant, and they're taking it a little too far. You can see it where only God created us, yet you want to say that God created everything, the universes and everything else, and you want to be arrogant enough to think that he only created us. He didn't create anything else, anywhere else in the universes or anything like that. I was created in his image. This isn't his image. This is a carbon-based, some refer to as an avatar or whatever, but this is our 3D carbon-based body. God is light. Light is energy. You go talking into the near-death experience. You read some of those people's stories. There's plenty of them that say they have seen Jesus. They've sat with Jesus. Okay, so they have a tangible. Because if God came down to earth and put on a human suit as Jesus, she's perfectly capable of doing. If he can do all the other things, why? That's not a big leap, right? So we tend to think that God's image is a human-like form. I say no, because anybody in the few near-death experiences that say they encountered God while their trip, they couldn't look at his face. It was just a bright light. They couldn't see, and they couldn't say, well, yeah, he had he was like, they couldn't even tell you what complexion he is or anything. It's just a bright light. And that's energy. And that's us created in his image. We are energy. Our soul is energy. It can't be destroyed, so on and so forth. All the information's there. It's just been strategically fractured into different areas, so people have trouble finding the pieces of the puzzle to get the clear picture.
Yeah. That's interesting. I've just been to ask you then, because you talked about ascension and stuff. Elisa, when's our next call? In 30 minutes?
Yes.
Right, can you just let me know? Right, okay. I want to ask you about the last Q drop, Rick. I'll read it. What is coded in your DNA? And this was 3 years, 2 months ago. What is coded in your DNA? Who put it there? Why? Mankind is repressed. We will be repressed no more. Information is knowledge. Knowledge is power. Information is power. How do you protect your DNA? There is a war for your DNA. Protect your DNA. Ascension. Q. I'm going to comment on that.
Spot on.
Yeah.
Spot on.
That is the very last drop.
Granted, it's a struggle to try to protect our DNA, because Lord knows they've attacked that. They've attacked your pineal gland with fluoride, injections, food supplies. The list goes on and on. I'm sure there's chemtrails outside right now. Things like that. What's going on with that? So all we can do in that realm is to try to detoxify ourselves with all the basic detoxing protocols. I think one of the reasons why I haven't come down with a lot of things that people can be looking at and stuff like that, friends I know. I'll be 69 in May. Yeah, I got some arthritis. I probably got a herniated disc, which triggers my sciatica every now and then, mostly during a full moon. I've been tracking that past 2 or 3 cycles, just days before. I'm more sensitive, and I start thinking about moving. Don't lift something too heavy where I'll get the trigger. Because once I get the trigger, it's like, It's like I'm walking around with my one leg stiff because I don't want to move the wrong way. And it's got to be involved with, I've only been told I had degenerative disc, which is an aging thing anyway. But back in 2005, I worked out in Sandy Valley, Nevada, at a milling site for zeolite, which is a volcanic mineral. And it's nature's sponge. It takes two radiation isotopes out of water. The government's been using it. They used it at 3 Mile Island. They used it at Chernobyl. They used it at Fukushima. They used it to absorb the oil in the Florida coast during the BP oil spill. It's been used. It's been cooked into biscuits to reduce the effects of radiation on the children around Chernobyl, fed to cows to take those radioactive isotopes. It was used, and still probably used to this day, in the aqueducts in Roman times to purify the water. Okay.
Yeah.
I went out there to do an electrical job, spent time out there. The first thing I see is dust all over the place and like a gypsum plant, and I'm like, do I need a mask? And I said, no. It's a silica, so, you might want to be a little careful, and they said, see this dog right here? And I said, yeah, there's this dog that would run out to our truck, or I've been out there on my bike. They said that dog, when it got out here, was in such bad shape that it used to drag its hindquarters around and basically pee all over itself and everything. And you wouldn't have known it. That dog was walking upright and everything, because it's around these big piles of zeolite all day, being detoxed. And I started eating it raw. When you look up zeolite, stay away from the liquid stuff, because think about it, how much zeolite is going to be in the liquid. It's a granular silica-like substance, and it's not going to dissolve. It's better than baking soda. It's better than diatomaceous earth, activated charcoal as far as filtration is concerned. It's just all around better. Nature's sponge, it's referred to. The type, there's different types. There's a cabasite zeolite, which is the more expensive slightly, and I would refer to it like the premium of, compared to the clinopatillolite, which is more general use. You get some of that, you can get it on Amazon. You can get it in pill form or powder form.
Rick, what is the one that you recommend? Like that you just said?
Clinopatillolite zeolite.
Clinopatilla.
Patillolite. Just call it clino.
Okay.
Some people just refer to it as clino. It's mined out here in Amargosa Springs, Nevada, some of the best in the world. Okay. It's used for all sorts of filtration. At one point, a guy was talking to me about a project in Sri Lanka after the tsunami, and they were going to replenish the soil after all that seawater just went over the whole place, and they needed to detoxify the soil, particularly with urea, which is another mineral, and the zeolite, and they were trying to put the deal together. And I'm like, how much we talking about? Oh, I don't know. Let's just say 300,000 tons. I'm like, holy smoke. I'll be a millionaire, right? But after that tsunami, the continuity of government was in question, right? And all up, down, this person, that person. So nobody was willing to step foot on further on the project, because a new government could rise up, take over, and basically your deal was with the other government. So it never, and then time marched on, and the last contact I had with the guy is he was retiring and everything else. So, another thing on the list of things that never happened to me. So here I am on the GCRRV. And I'm hoping this is it. So let's go. All right.
Well, we're getting close to something, aren't we?
Yes,
Certainly.
we are.
Things have escalated and escalated, de-escalated over the last 9 years. And we're really seeing things kick into gear now. And
Have you seen the little video with the newscaster and Trump signing the executive order about the med beds in the first med bed hospital? And they show a picture of a hospital. I sent that out, and one person came back and said, it looks like AI to me, which is always the go-to move on some things. But if anything, maybe they did put that together just as a launching tool, a desensitizing tool.
Yeah, but they put that truth out, didn't they? Then they took that one back down,
And they
didn't
took
they?
it back. I think it was it 12 hours or 8 hours? It was up for a very
No, it
long
was just a short little thing where she's like over here on one half saying about the med beds things, and then you hear Trump talking about the executive order in the med bed, and then they show a picture of a building, which could have been any hospital or any building anywhere. But, you know, be that as it may, you know, I want the real thing, because quite realistically, I'm tired of what I just said about it's just a little desensitizing pre-lib to the whole what's actually coming thing. I'm tired of making excuses for them to try to convince people that there is an element of tangibility to this whole thing. I mean, and I won't debate it anymore with people, because, you know, here's a puzzle piece, take it or leave it. Throw it in the trash, let the dog chew it so it won't fit into your picture, whatever you got to do. But I did my job and gave you a breadcrumb.
Yeah. Exactly.
You know? Because even on the organized religion thing, I start telling people about, basically, for lack of a better synopsis, the incorporation of some of the new age frequency healing and stuff and ascension processes involved with your chakras, your third eye, and all that into your organized religion mindset. They want to, and the better translation of the Ethiopian Geneva Bibles, they want to circle back into modern translations to either make sense of it in some cases, but more to rebuke or try to put whatever I'm saying into question. So it led me to, God said, you can't find the truth if you're looking in the same place.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You got to go outside. It's like, I'm in a house. Is it raining? I don't know. If I'm in the closet in the house, the only way to find out if it's raining, get up off your ass and go outside and see if it's raining. I mean,
exactly. So apart from med beds and stuff, what do you see coming down the pipeline over the next few months?
I came across a map where they say that there's like 2 in Nevada, 2 in Arizona, a couple in Florida, and judging, they didn't say exactly, but they got dots. Looks like there's one around Orlando area somewhere. It looks like there's, I forget where the second one is in Nevada, but one of them's definitely in the Vegas area. Maybe most likely the Nellis Air Force Base. Arizona wise, they're down south, you know, Phoenix. And then there's a dot, which would be more towards Tucson, but there is a military installation down there. So, you know, and that little video was, Trump was talking about the medbed card. Everybody's going to have a medbed card. So doesn't that just kind of squash the whole, oh my God, my health care, affordable health care and everything else conversation? What are we going to, my premiums are going to go up. Oh my God, the sky is falling. The sky is falling. Wow. Yeah. Here's your medbed card. Shut up.
And he's just been taking it, he's got to go slow because the normies, right? There are people out there who think they're going to just die if they don't get their pharmaceuticals. So he's got to show all this stuff with the pricing and this and that. And he's going to go into the insurance companies. And listen, I don't know about you, but I've got a whole slew of normies that feel really empowered with their tray of pills that they take every day, so it's cognitive dissonance on their part. And I'm sure even with the med beds, people are going to be like, no, there's going to always be that percentage. But to get to your question, where did you find where these kind of dotted areas are? What source?
It was on Telegram.
On Telegram. And also part 2 of that question, did it appear to you that it was military bases? Because remember, they said the military was going to be in charge of this before it starts.
Well, the maps weren't that definitive, but you're talking about a colored map with dots on it. It didn't expand out to where I could see anything of definitive nature. But the one, because I'm in Arizona, but I'm looking, it's like, well, wait a minute, Nevada, and I can tell that's Vegas area. And I do know Nellis Air Force Base is there. We got Area 51. That's been mentioned, and there's more to Area 51 than the thing you see on TV. There's S3, S4, other areas that are talked about that are far more secretive than Area 51.
100%.
Well, we got Gene Decode on tomorrow night. It's not going to be live. It's a private one, but then we'll load it the next day. So he'll be telling us a lot about these underground bases, no doubt.
Yep, they're there. And I can only imagine what these special personnel are going through. You just heard the story about the Spetsnaz bringing those babies out of that underground tunnel. I'm pretty sure it was Ukraine. And dead babies and cradling them, and the emotional breakdown that these guys, hardened special badasses, and they're being reduced to blubbering emotional messes because of what they have to see. And they're put them in the med beds first. I don't need to go until they're.
Well, I've heard, again, like you say, and I think it might have been Simon Parks who said numerous years ago that every time these guys go in, like it's not like a regular war, they come back, they go and leave, they go back, they have to be healed because of what they're seeing. So that's what is taking, makes it take a little longer with this. But no doubt, I'm sure that that's what they're being used for these guys and for the kids that are savable, to heal bodies, minds, spirit, everything that we know that supposedly these med beds do, on the many levels.
Some of them are being taken off planet.
That's what I've heard too.
And they're not going to come back here where they might, maybe their parents are already gone or whatever the case may be. Exopolitics with Michael Sala and JP. JP is being allowed to divulge certain things and that he's involved in. The arcs. There's supposed to be a big arc in the Atlantic. Stuff like that, which explains some of the things that go on that are explained in a different fashion, so on and so forth. We're still going to see this Antarctica thing come up over the horizon. Okay, folks, the Earth's not flat. It's just larger than what we've been told. And I'm seeing more stuff come out. I got those pictures of the ice planet and the craters. The Earth is in a crater with a dome of it of some sort, whether it be ice or atmospheric densities or whatever. And then on the outside, there's another ring on the other outside. Let's say another ice wall. And there's land masses out there called Dracos, Atlanteus, Lemura, all that. The big map that they show you. interesting thing, I caught a piece about airships, the Hindenburg and all that stuff, that technology, which ties in with the Tartaria and lost civilizations. What happened to those? Oh, what happened right after the Hindenburg? Oh, all of a sudden, commercial aviation took hold.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we can't have people just going up in airships, and it's the epitome of the water-based engine and the 100-mile-per-gallon carburetor and all that stuff. And this person went on to say, more than likely, this is how we got these old ancient maps, is because they were up in airships mapping all these land masses on the other side of the ice wall and further and further. Okay. So just picture that we are in a crater as far as, North America, South America, and all that. And okay, that solves the argument about the Earth spinning ball, Earth is fixed argument, because sitting in a crater like that, the Earth is fixed. It's stationary. But the larger, I haven't seen a name jump up about that. Maybe that's Nirubu. Who knows?
Who knows?
We've been told Nirubu is some other landmass, asteroid or whatever.
And it goes around the Earth in a sort of not a round method, but more of a elongated way, that there's only a certain number of years that it actually passes through, and so
2,600, isn't it, or something like that?
Yeah, you guys.
But what I'm presenting is maybe we are sitting on Nirubu.
Maybe.
Maybe.
And the so-called coming of Nirubu is the realization that we're on a much larger planet, if you will. Yeah, that's very speculative, folks. That's trying to put puzzle pieces, and they don't always fit all the right away.
Yeah.
But when they don't, just don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. Set it off to the side and wait.
Exactly.
Because the veil is being lifted. God will reveal all things to you.
Yeah.
And remember, my people will be destroyed for lack of knowledge. And let's face it, they want us destroyed, don't they?
Yeah.
Yeah. And whatever we're living on or in or around, the math for the heliocentric model, 8 inches per mile drop and all that stuff, it does not add up, does it? So let's see what happens.
But about the math, those calculations are done with the dimensions we've been given.
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. Because here, you got an Earth spinning ball, right? So there's a certain amount of curve to that size ball. But now, watch this. We take that and we go like this, and we put it on the side of a larger. The math changes, doesn't it?
Of course it does.
As far as definitive curvature. And you're going to get a lot of comments about this, okay? Because I went overseas in the Navy, crossed the Pacific and back, and I was in electronics, radar, and navigational gear. I wasn't just some other sailor on the ship. My equipment could look out and see land masses miles and miles away where you can't go outside and see it. Now, they'll try to say, well, that's perspective drawing, right? Well, okay, let's go down that rabbit hole. I took 6 years of mechanical drawing in high school. Or no, 6 semesters, 3 years. Mechanical drawing, basic drawing, and then architecture. So I understand drawing and vectors and vanishing points, and I did really well in geometry. I was junior year in high school. I was in physics with a whole bunch of other seniors. Not that I'm any brainiac, but I took well to it until the chemistry section. Then I went, I couldn't balance an equation to save my life. My experience with chemistry came later on in years when I started smoking marijuana and dealing cocaine. So that was my battle with chemistry.
Elisa, you're muted. Right.
You're muted.
Sorry about that. We need to wrap up, but we got to have you on again real soon. And again, you guys find Razor Rick on Rumble, like and follow the Roundtable. I make an occasional appearance, which I'm going to be making more. So I've been a little MIA lately with a lot of what we've been doing on Patriots Across the Pond. But we can't thank you enough for being on here. There was someone in the chat, a bunch of people had some really wonderful comments about how much they love listening to you and could listen to you all day. So you make a lot of sense.
Shucks.
Yeah. Brilliant.
Just remember, if you have an office, do what Agent Mulder did. Put a piece of tape on the door, on the window. You don't know what that was for, because he always figured they were going to take him out sooner or later. At least that's the way I seen it. You know, that's so they could have a nice thing to aim on, because I'm sure he lined it up with his head, the tape on the window. And as Agent Mulder always said, the truth is out there.
Love it.
And then I said, the truth will not be handed to you. It has to be pursued.
Exactly. Yeah, and that's what we're
in
all
the
doing.
words of John Cougar Mellencamp, you got to stand for something or you'll fall for anything.
Yeah.
Perfect. What a beautiful place to end it. Rick, thank you very much, sir. Thanks everyone in the chat. And
thank you everyone in the chats. I'll somehow read this. I haven't been able to read it.
Sweet. All right, guys. Much love. When we go, we'll see you soon.
All right.
Bye, guys. Bye, Rick. Thank you.
In a world flooded with noise, clarity has become rare. People are questioning what they're told and searching for something real. Mr. Heal's modern wellness meets old school remedies. CBD tinctures, methylene blue, gummies and edibles, THC-free wellness, and functional remedies crafted with old school care and modern precision. Biozox, a trusted source for ivermectin and fenbendazole. Biozox, believe your health decisions should be yours, not dictated by politicians or big pharma. Crafted with purpose and precision, Freedom Forged coffee. Coffee, cacao and mushroom tinctures. Small batch roasted coffee, rich cacao and functional mushrooms crafted with purpose. Verity Metals, redefining what precious metals investing should be. Why choose Verity Metals? We're not just another gold dealer. We're a trusted retirement partner. Our clients choose us because we lead with education, integrity, and transparency. Medical bills are the leading cause of bankruptcy in the United States, accounting for 66.5% of bankruptcies. We can all agree the healthcare system is broken. There is an alternative. Impact Health Sharing, which Yahoo News is calling the disruptor in the $4.6 trillion healthcare system. For more information, visit patriotsacrossthepond.com.